Hello friends and welcome back to another Invisible Man reading. Today we're reading chapter 12. The Invisible Man loses his temper. It is unavoidable that at this point the narrative should break off again, for a certain very painful reason that will presently be apparent. While these things were going on in the parlor, and while Mr. Huxter was watching Mr. Marvel smoking his pipe against the gate, not a dozen yards away were Mr. Hall and Teddy Henferry, discussing in a state of cloudy puzzlement on the one imping topic. Suddenly there came a violent thud against the door of the parlor, and a sharp cry, and then silence. "Hullo," said Teddy Henferry. "Hullo," from the tap. Mr. Hall took things slowly but surely. That ain't right," he said, and came around from behind the bar towards the parlor door. He and Teddy approached the door together, with intent faces. Their eyes considered summit wrong, said Hall, and Henferry nodded agreement. Whiffs on an unpleasant chemical odor met them, and there was a muffled sound of conversation, very rapidly and subdued. "You all right, Thur?" asked Hall, rapping, and muttered conversation ceased abruptly for a moment. Silence. Then the conversation was resumed, in hissing whispers. Then a sharp cry of "No, no, you don't!" There came a sudden motion in the setting of a chair. A brief struggle. Silence again. What the deuce?" exclaimed Henferry Soto Vos. You all right, Thur?" asked Mr. Hall sharply again. The vicar voice answered with a curious jerking intonation. "Quite right. Please don't interrupt." "Odd," said Mr. Henferry. "Odd," said Mr. Hall. "Says don't interrupt," said Henferry. "I heard'n," said Hall. "And a sniff," said Henferry. They remained listening. The conversation was rapid but subdued. I can't," said Mr. Bunting, his voice rising. "I tell you, sir, I will not." "What was that?" asked Henferry. "Says he will we nart," says Hall. "Warn't speaking to us, was he?" "Disgraceful," said Mr. Bunting within. "Disgraceful," said Mr. Henferry. "I heard it distinct." "Who's that speaking now?" asked Henferry. "Mr. Cusses, suppose," said Hall. "Can you hear anything?" Silence. The sound within indistinct and perplexing. "Sounds like throwing the tablecloth about," said Hall. Mrs. Hall appeared behind the bar, made gestures of silence and invitation. This roused Mrs. Hall's wifely opposition. What ye listenin' here for, Hall?" she asked. "Ain't you nothin' better to do? Busy day like this?" Hall tried to convey anything but grimaces and dumb show, but Miss Hall was ab- obdurate. She raised her voice, so Hall and Henferry, rather crestfallen, tiptoed back to the bar, gesticulating to explain to her. At first she refused to see anything in what they had heard at all. Then she insisted on Hall keeping silence, while Henferry told her his story. She was inclined to think that the whole business nonsense. Perhaps they were just moving the furniture about. "I didn't say disgraceful, that I did," said Hall. "I heard that, Miss Hall," said Henferry. "Like as not," began Mrs. Hall. "Hish," said Mr. Teddy Henferry. "Didn't I hear the window?" "What window?" asked Mrs. Hall. "Parlour window," said Henferry. Everyone stood listening intently. Mrs. Hall's eyes, directed straight before her, saw without seeing the brilliant oblong of the inn door, the road white and vivid, and Huxter's shop front glistening in the June sun. Apparently, Huxter's door opened and Huxter appeared. eyes staring with excitement, arms gesturing. "Yep," cried Huckster. "Stop, thief!" And he ran obsequently across the oblong towards the yard gates and vanished. Simultaneously came a tumult from the parlor, and a sound of windows being closed. Hall, Hen Fairy, and the human contents of the tap rushed out at once. Pummel into the streets. They saw someone whisk around the corner towards the down road, and Mr. Huxter extruding a complimented leap in the air that ended on his face, his shoulders down the streets. People were standing astonished or running towards them. Mr. Huxter was stunned. Henry stopped to discover this, but Hall and the two Labradors from the tap rushed at once to the corner, shouting incoherent things, and saw Mr. Marvel vanishing by the corner of the church wall. They appeared to have jumped to the impossible conclusion that this was the Invisible Man suddenly become visible, and set off at once along the lane of pursuit. But Hall had hardly run a dozen yards before he gave a loud shout of astonishment and went flying headlong sideways, clutching one of the laborers and bringing him to the ground. He had been charged just as one charges a man at football. The second laborer came around in a circle, stared, and conceivingly that Hall had tumbled over of his own accord, turned to resume the pursuit, only to be tripped by the ankle just as Huxter had been. There was the first laborer struggled to his feet. He was kicked sideways by a blow that might have fell an ox. As he went down, the rush from the direction of the village green came around the corner. The first to appear was the proprietor of the Coconut, shy and burbly man in a blue jersey. He was astonished to see the lane empty save for three men sprawling absurdly on the ground, and then something happened to his nearmost foot, and he went headlong and rolled sideways just in time to gaze the feet of his brother and partner. Following headlong, the two were then kicked, knelt on, fallen over, and cursed by quite a number of over-hasty people. Now, when Hall and Hen Fairy and the laborers ran out of the house, Mrs. Hall, who had been disciplined by years of experience, remained in the bar next to the till, and suddenly the parlor door was opened and Mr. Cuss appeared, and without glancing at her, rushed at once down the steps toward the corner. "Hold him," he cried. "Don't let him drop that parcel. You can't see him so long as he holds the parcel." He knew nothing of the existence of Marvel, for the Invisible Man had handed over the books and bundle in the yard. The face of Mr. Cuss was angry and resolute, but his costume was defective, a sort of limp white kilt that could have passed muster in grease. "Hold him," he brawled. "He's got my trousers and even a stitch of the vicar's clothes. Tend to him in a minute," he cried to Hen Fairy as he passed the prostrate Huxter, and coming round the corner to join the tumble, was promptly knocked off his feet into an indecorous sprawl. Somebody in full flight trod heavily on his finger. He yelled, struggled to regain his feet, and knocked against the throne on all fours again, and began aware that he was involved not in a capture but a rout. Everyone was running back to the village. He rose again and was hit severely behind the ear. He staggered and set off back to the coach and horses forthwith, leaping over the deserted Huxter, who who was now sitting up on his way. Behind him, as he was halfway up the inn steps, he heard a sudden yell of rage rising sharply out of the confusion of cries, and a sounding smack in someone's face. He recognized the voice as that of the Invisible Man, and the note was that of the man suddenly infuriated by a painful blow. In another moment, Mr. Cuss was back in the parlor. "He's coming back, Bunting," he said, rushing him. "Save yourself, he's gone mad." Mr. Bunting was standing in the window, engaged in an attempt to clothe himself in a hearth rug and a West Surbury Gazette. "Who's coming?" he said, so startled that his costume narrowly escaped uh, disingenuous. "Invisible Man," said Cuss, and rushed to the window. "We'd better clear her out from here. He's fighting mad. Mad." In another moment he was out of the yard. "Good heavens," said Mr. Bunting, hesitating between two horrible alternatives. He heard a frightening struggle in the passage of the inn, and his decision was made. He clambered out the window, adjusted his costume hastily, and fled up the village as fast as his fat little legs would carry him. From the moment when the Invisible Man screamed with rage and Mr. Bunting made his memorable flight up the village, it became impossible to give a consecutive amount of affairs in Impling. Possibly the Invisible Man's original intention was simply to cover Miss Marvel's retreat with the clothes and books, but his temper, at no time very good, seems to have gone completely at some chance blown, and forthwith he set to smiting and overthrowing for the mere satisfaction of hurting. You must figure the streets full of running figures and of doors slamming and fights of for hiding places. You must figure that tumult suddenly striking on the unstable equilibrium of old Fletcher's planks and two chairs with cataclysmic results. You must figure an appalled couple caught dismally in a swing, and then the whole tremendous rush has passed in the Impling streets with its guards and flags deserted save for the still raging unseen and littered with coconuts, overthrown canvas streets, and the scattered stock and trade of sweet stuff stall. Everywhere is a sound of closing shutters and shoving bolts, and the only visible humanity is an occasional flirting eye under a raised eyebrow in the corner of a window pane. The Invisible Man amused himself for a little while by breaking all the windows in the coach and horses, and then he thrust a street lamp through the parlor window of Mrs. Gibble. It must have been who cut the telegraph wire to Aberdeen, just beyond Higgins' cottage on the Aberdeen road, and after that his peculiar qualities allowed he pass out of human uh, perceptions altogether, as he was neither heard, seen, nor felt in Impling any more. He vanished absolutely, but it was the best part of 2 hours before any human being ventured out again into the desolation of Imping Street. And that's the end of chapter 12. Tune in tomorrow for chapter 13. So, friends, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow us on social media at the Funky Play Bros and Funky Play Brothers, and don't forget to help us by subscribing to our YouTube. Thank you for watching. Bye.